Hi all, welcome to the Matchbook Horse Racing Podcast. We've got more top-level jumping action coming your way because although we've got Punchestown to get stuck into, and it's Guineas Week as well, which I know Matt Toombs is super excited about, but he's having to contain his excitement. If you're listening on the podcast, you're missing out because he just did a great excitement impression. We've got Punchestown coming your way. We're previewing the first 2 days predominantly. We'll get something out towards the end of the week as well for the Guineas and wrapping up Punchestown as well. But I get ahead of myself. Afternoon, Peter. Welcome along, all you regulars. Lovely to have you along with us. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm sure the regulars have. It makes it easier to have everything you want to see Matchbook content-wise there in front of you, and it helps us as well. It is the best no-cost way of supporting our podcast. If you like it, please do so. And do check out our daily horse racing markets as well. Given the nature of Matchbook being an exchange, we're often best price up there. So do check out our daily horse racing markets. That's across all the tracks, not just Punchestown, which we're going to get stuck into now. 3:05 at Punchestown we start with. We're just going to go in race card order of the feature races. This is the series final handicap hurdle. As far as the betting goes, I'll give you prices if I've got them when we get there. But first of all, Donn McClean, welcome along. I hope you enjoy Punchestown, and I hope you kick things off with a winner.
I hope so too, Tom. Yeah. Look, it should be a cracking week ahead, like it always is. And there's so many subplots going on as well. Most notably, the battle between Jack Kennedy and Paul Townend for the Jockeys Championship. So that's going to be a fascinating kind of undercurrent to the whole week. But it's a new race, the full circle series. It's a good initiative, and there've been qualifiers run throughout the season. And I think Morricone is interesting. Ray Hackett's horse. Ray Hackett had a good winner there the other day at Tipperary. And Morricone, I thought he did well. He stayed on really well to win over 2.5 miles at Punchestown in early February. So he goes well at the track. He'd won the time before that as well at the track. So he goes particularly well at Punchestown. In fact, his last 4 runs have been at Punchestown. But he goes well here. He stayed on well to get to the better of Shannon Royale, who came out and won next time. He's got an £8 hike for that, but he's just a progressive horse, and a lot of his progression has been on soft ground, but it should be okay on better ground as well. And it looks like we're going to have better ground for the festival. There shouldn't be much between him and Petit King on the base of that run the last day, but I just think Morricone, it looks like he's been kept for this off an £8 higher mark. Ray Hackett obviously was happy that he was getting into the race, and it's a more than workable mark, a mark of 112, and with his course forward, I think this trip is a good trip for him as well, up to almost 2.5 miles. I think, especially on the better ground, that should be a help to him. And I just think he's an improving horse. He could step forward again. I'm not sure what price he's going to be, but hopefully he'll be a wee bit of a price.
Yes, I'm not certain on prices just yet. Dan, I'm going to bring you in next. Matt, I know you're sitting this one out, as am I, sitting out most of the races, just be hosting, but the odd bet thrown in. Dan, who do you like and why?
Yeah, Don mentioned it's one of the newer races, and we've got 7 British runners, which I think probably shows you where we are, that we can only get that many runners in one of the lower grade handicaps. But there we go. At least it's nice to see them come over. And one of the trainers who we know does target this meeting is Anthony Honeyball. And I think he's got a really interesting runner in World of Dreams, who, if you go back a few years ago, was a really promising horse, won 2 bumpers, was 5th in the Aintree bumper. And as a novice hurdler, won 2 of his 3 starts, only got beaten by Staghorn, who won a grade 2 on his next start and was obviously 100 plus rated on the flat. Obviously had injury issues thereafter, but I think shaped pretty well on his return when we last saw him after what was an 800-day absence. Obviously, that was a qualifier for this race, so I don't think they probably had grand ideas of getting absolutely right for that. I imagine this has been a long-term plan. He was given an opening mark after his novice hurdle campaign of 120. He now finds himself on mark 112. And now, if you have to take a bit of trust on how much ability he retains, but if you go back to his novice hurdle campaign, you go back to his bumper days, he looks really well handicapped at 112. Anthony Honeyball, I think, is really good at getting these horses back from long layoffs, and we know he does target this meeting quite well. So I'll take a chance on him. I think he'll be quite a big price as well, as many of these will, because it is a very competitive race, but he has the potential to be extremely well handicapped.
Welcome along, Callum. Welcome along, Tom. Tom says, I'm going to Newmarket as my local track. I'll see you there. But you also say you've backed Dino Blue at 3.0 for tomorrow. We might just get there. Well, we will get there because we roll on and we get to the first of the grade 1s. The 340 is the champion novices hurdle. I'm coming in here purely because I'm sort of part of a team steam that has emerged for Tully Hill. Now, Matt, we have been talking about Tully Hill for some time, even a bit before actually he won the listed Punchestown hurdle and shortened in the odds for Supreme, because he came up in a preview that we'd done prior to that in the Cheltenham Trail. He was obviously hugely disappointing at Cheltenham. I feel that was a bit of a blowout run. And there's enough in his price now to forgive that and get on board back at the track he dominated at to score in the listed race. Why is it you're back with Tully Hill?
I think it's the other two lads who are with Tully Hill rather than me, Tom.
Good, that went really well. I'm really.
You had a 66% chance of getting that right. Not quite.
It does, of course, now mean Tully Hill's a certainty.
Yeah. Well, you. I thought we were all with. I just had it in my head we were all with Tully Hill. Well, Matt's got it wrong. That's a great shame. Dan.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah.
Well.
Superb as usual. It's one of those where it is a lot of is price related. Obviously, he went off favourite Supreme. The vibe was that he was the number one, despite obviously Mystical Power running a great race. Obviously, I do love Slay-Steer as a horse. I've really warmed him, but when it comes to this meeting, I'm just remiss to kind of oppose Willie Mullins on too many occasions. And if you look at their strike rates, I think Henry's got a 4.5% strike rate at the meeting, and Willie Mullins has a 17% strike rate. He's won 7 of the last 10 runnings of this race alone. And I just think there's enough to suggest that we could just see a better version of him. I think afterwards they said, well, Paul felt he had a lot of horse coming down the hill and then just kind of emptied pretty quickly, which obviously is a concern, and he has to bounce back from that. But I think there was an interview with Willie back home said he's been working the gallops down really extremely well. So I don't think they've lost any faith in him. Obviously, was second in the Grade 1 bumper here last season. He won the listed novice hurdle against No Flies on him early in the season as well. So the track is absolutely no problem. I don't think he'll be pestered as much for the lead here as he was, because his Teller the Name was running extremely keen on his outside pretty much for the entirety of the Supreme. I don't think that necessarily helped. I think he'll probably get an easy enough lead on this occasion as well. Obviously, Paul Townend still rides. I think that price is just enough to tempt me back in and give him one more chance.
The other thing is, Don, that, you know, Mullins' first string in the Supreme, they rarely get it wrong in the pecking order. And this horse went off ahead of Mystical Power, who's obviously since come out and won at the top level, ran a really good race. He's clearly better than that. Clearly better was expected. So I've just got, you know, I think we're still, maybe it is the work at home that led to that price. But yeah, I really don't want to be with anything else, and will be laying the top of the market as well. But yeah, Tully Hill, make the case.
Yeah, I was with him at Cheltenham, and he was disappointing. But I think Willie said afterwards that Paul had said to him that even on the way down to the start, he didn't feel like the real Tully Hill. So if you put a line through that run, for whatever reason, it wasn't the real Tully Hill. We know that. And look, he was beaten at 8-1 on by the aforementioned Shannon Royale in his first run this season. So he's not one that always gives his best performances. But on his best performances, like at Macy, he was very good in winning his maiden hurdle, and then that listed hurdle that Dan was talking about back at Punchestown, that was a really good run. He got out in front and he stayed on well, beat a good horse and No Flies on him, who was running later on in the week as well. But I just think that exactly what, as Dan said, he's possibly going to get an easy enough time in front here, and his forward going style of racing, that suits Punchestown well. And given the regard in which he was held, and like as a bumper horse, he was the one that they chose to take on A Dream to Share in the champion bumper here last year at Punchestown last year in front of Ballyburn. So that's how highly regarded he was then last year. And back at Punchestown, where he goes well, it was yielding ground for the festival last year too, for the champion bumper, so we know he can handle better ground as well. And look, Mystical Power did really well. He was good in winning at Aintree. Just worry about horses going from Cheltenham to Aintree to Punchestown. It's not that easy to do all three. It's a very good race. The first four in the Supreme Novices Hurdle are here, and Slade-Steele I think is the right favourite. He's a really exciting horse, I think, for next season. Just on better ground, over 2 miles. He just probably doesn't have his optimum conditions for a short price favourite. So yeah, I think Tully Hill is I think he's a fair way overpriced at about 7.0 or thereabouts.
I'm going to give you those prices, and they are as follows. Slade-Steele is 2.25, Mystical Power is 3.75. Then you got Tully Hill in there at 8.5. We get to the biggest price that's being put up, 21.0, Matt Tombs, Asian Master.
Yeah, and echo a lot of what the lads have said about, and yourself, Tom, about wanting to take on the front of the market. Don's made the point about going from Cheltenham to Aintree as Mystical Power's done. No horse winning this century has done that. In fact, all 7 top novice winners who've come to this have been beaten. Slade Steele, as Don said, I think he's just avoiding the Ballyburn again in the 2 mile 3 race, which around this track would look the right one for him. I think he's a bit short, albeit I very much agree with Don. He looks a fantastic prospect for chasing next year. So that's led me to look for something a bit more of a price. Asian Masters, about 21.0, went very wide, but travelled really well in the Supreme. Yeah, Amateur Tom Costello's had just the 11 rides under rule, so very much learning his trade. In that context, to be beaten just 5 1/4 lengths in 4th by horses that had the experience advantage of running in graded novice hurdles was a good performance by Asian Master. His previous form, beating Gallagher's second Jimmy DeSoy and then beating the Martin Pipe winner Better Days Ahead, looks good now. And so whilst a couple of good contests he's won, he still should have learnt plenty from his first run in graded company in the Supreme. The better ground may suit him. He's bred to want further, but he looks to have plenty of tactical pace. And backing horses in Grade 1s ridden by £7 claimers who can't claim against the top pros is obviously a chancy betting strategy. But he is a big price given this Supreme form. And it's a race where double-figure price winners aren't uncommon. 3 of the last 7 have gone off 17.0 or bigger. This looks more competitive than it often does. So I want to take a punt and play Asian Master, win and place.
All right, moving on. Callum says, whenever I see Tom Stanley, he looks absolutely shagged out. I thought I'd read that out because I can confirm. I wish, Callum, I wish. But more likely 2 kids under 3.5, 1 who doesn't sleep, and I just got back from Paris on a bike. So, yeah. But, yeah.
It's nice they care about your well-being, though.
Isn't that lovely? Isn't that lovely? Yeah. But, yeah, unfortunately, it's through no fun. We move on to the Killer She Handicap Hurdle. And Don, I love you for doing this. Brentford Hope, 13.0. When he won for Richard Hughes on the bridle at Newmarket, I think it was on debut. And I thought, tell you what, that could be a classic horse. But no, the Killer She Handicap Hurdle for a different trainer. Why?
Different trainer, different owner. He was owned by the Mulrynes then, wasn't he? Yeah, look, I just... Look, he's got that pedigree. He's got a classic pedigree. Is it Dan win the Middleton, or she's a half sister to a Middleton Stakes winner? But he's just been progressing over hurdles. I thought he won well at Newcastle. I thought his performance at Haydock the last day when he was weak in the market beforehand, I thought he won with a fair bit more in hand than the half-length winning margin. He only got home by a half a length. Holly was closing him down close home. But I thought the turn of foot that he showed to go to the front and put the race to bed, that was impressive. He's only £3 higher now than he was then. Look, he's got top weight to carry, but he's obviously a classy horse in the race. He's still improving, and he's got form and better ground as well as the soft ground on which he won at Haydock the last day. So look, it's good that Harry Durham is taking him over, and I think that he's got the potential to be able to give the weight away. And I think he's a bigger price than I thought he would be, actually.
That is Brentford Hope. Matt?
Yeah, one to keep an eye on here before I get to my selection is Glan, who's backed off the boards for the Galway Hurdle of 135, pulled up clinically abnormal. She's been off since the Stole where the ground went against her. She's not a tip here. I suspect Galway she's been primed for again, but watch her in the market. If she is very strong, then this may be the day, and she'd be one for momentum punters. But 5 Galway Hurdle winners this century have run in it the previous year. A bit like the Grand Annual, they generally went off near the front of the market the last time. So she's one for your notebooks for Galway. But my bet at this stage is a very obvious one. Daddy Longlegs really impressed me when bolting up by 13 lengths at Thurles on yielding ground in his hurdling debut in November. Second case, Poulaw is now rated 134, was leading fancy for the Attempts final. Third hasn't run again, but the fourth Farmers Lodge went over fences and rated 130. And Daddy's Longlegs got stuck in the mud twice in Grade 1s at Leopardstown. Put a line through that, showed his well-being when converting a penalty kick at Ayr last week. It looked as if he was ridden there very much with a view to effectively having a piece of work to keep him fresh enough for Punchestown. He's rated 135 here. And if he is really ground dependent, essentially flat bred, he could be lobbed in off this mark. So it's a fairly short price, around 5.0. You might get a bit bigger, but I do think he has very strong claims.
Dan?
Yeah, I remember. I think Daddy Longlegs. I mean, he was pretty short price to the Supreme a while ago, so I can definitely see the case for him. No queries there. But I do think this Toto 2 is potentially very smart in his own right. Really liked him. Obviously, ran some decent races for Peter Farr. He was second to You Ought to Know on his rules debut. Obviously, went on to be second at the DRF bumper. So he then was really well backed for the Grade 2 at Cheltenham in October and was given just a bit of a strange ride. It was obviously very quick ground there and was just out the back the entire way. Only went off 13-8. So a bit of a strange one. Then moved to Gavin Cromwell. I love the way he won last time out. He looked like he was going to really just bolt up. He was travelling really strongly, coming to the second last, and made a dreadful error. Like, back legs went through it. That would have probably ended the chance of pretty much most horses, but he somehow recovered and then quickened up really smartly to win a shade cosily under what was a really cool ride again. I think that, to me, looked like a horse who had a lot of upside still left. Obviously, this is his handicap debut. I think off a mark 133. On bare form, he does have a bit to improve on, but I think the style in which he's doing things, and especially last start, I think that, to me, he could potentially be a graded horse going forward. I don't think good ground is going to be any issue. They were keen to run him on quick ground earlier in the season. So I think however the ground turns up, he's going to like it. Really strong travelling type. I think handicaps are going to suit him down to the ground. I'd be disappointed if a mark 133 was the limit of his ability, and I think he could run a really big race on his handicap debut.
5:25 is the champion chase. We've already heard Dino Blue go up at 3.0. That's from one of the people writing into us. Captain Guinness is 4.5. Banbridge is 6.0. Gentleman Domain is 7.0. It's a competitive open company grade 1, no doubt about that. But who do the team like? 3 different horses. Matt, starting with you.
Yeah, I think this is a surprising market, given that 3 of the 4 main contenders have taken each other on. The 2 mile 1 grade 1s at Leopardstown. The form looks pretty clear. Christmas, Dino Blue beat Gentleman to Me by an easy 7.5 lengths. Captain Guinness pulled up. DRF, Dino Blue was second at El Fabiolo, 6 lengths ahead of Captain Guinness. Gentleman to Me, length and 3/4 further away. That DRF form was repeated virtually identically in the champion chase. Captain Guinness beat Gentleman to Me a length and a half. So on that basis, you could make a case that Dino Blue ought to be odds on here. Yeah, I'd only have her a shade of odds against. The reasons to expect the other pair to do better than at Leopardstown. Captain Guinness was getting a confidence booster at DRF. Bit of a short finisher at 2 mile 1 on softish ground, so this should suit him better. Gentleman to Me probably appreciate the drop back in trip 2, and he's a spring horse, but they've got to improve a fair bit to turn the tables on Dino Blue. She should have no trouble with the test. Won the 2 mile handicap at the meeting last year on Good to Yielding. I'd be a bit more worried about Banbridge. What puts me off him is the cheek pieces going on. I didn't have him down as a candidate for headgear. Perhaps it's that they're worried about him being able to go the gallop at this trip, and that they want to keep him woken up early on. So I'd have given him a go in the Gold Cup and see how he got on at 3 miles. But I expected Dino Blue to be a fair bit short on this. I think she's excellent value at 3.0.
Love it. Not only a case for your horse, but tearing apart the claims of the other 2 guys. Perfect. Banbridge, Don.
Yeah, Banbridge, I think is an interesting horse. The cheek pieces are interesting, all right. But I think what you said, Matt, about the latter part of the case, as in why they're on, I think that's exactly it. Dropping down and trip, because he's a Martin Pipe hurdle winner, and normally a Martin Pipe hurdle winner goes out and trip when they go over fences. He hasn't. He had the pace to win an Arkle trial over 2 miles, and 2.5 is probably his ideal trip. But he's really likely race. He's only run twice this season. He didn't make his debut until the middle of January when he came over to Kempton and won the Silverny Conti Chase. He was good that day, and then the Ryanair Chase the last day, the ground was too soft. He didn't jump well. I think Joseph O'Brien just decided to allow him to take his chance more in hope than confidence, and in the hope that he'd get away with the ground. He didn't get away with the ground. We know that he's a better horse on better ground than he is on soft ground. I think he's run 9 times on yielding to soft or softer. He's won twice, both times on summer soft ground, and he's won 10 times on yielding or quicker. And I think he's won 7 or 8 times. So we know from his record he's better on better ground. And I just think back at Punchestown, his jumping off good ground is very good. It always was from his novice days. And I just thought he'd be a bit closer to Dino Blue and Captain Guinness in the market than he is. And I'm a wee bit worried about the drop back down and trip, but he is pacey, and I'm hoping that his jumping and maybe the cheek pieces, the addition of cheek pieces, will allow him just to retain his position and then use his pace.
And Gentleman to Me for Dan.
Yeah, he's a strange horse, this Gentleman to Me. And he often flummoxes me to a certain extent, but I just see him in these races at this kind of price on good ground, and he has that propensity to just pop up, and we've seen it before, like in Aintree when he beat Edwardstone, who was coming off of winning the Arkle. We saw it at the Dublin Chase last season as well, and it normally takes him a few runs to kind of get up to the standard in which he runs. Obviously, he was a bit of a late starter this year. Completely take Matt's point. Obviously, he does have form defined with Dino Blue and Captain Guinness, but I think in the Champion Chase last time out, he was very much ridden to pick up the pieces. Like, that wasn't Gentleman de Me as we know him. Obviously, generally a forward-going horse. He was ridden off the pace. Obviously, the race completely capitulated. I don't think he was really in a position to capitalise. But I think they'll probably return to more positive tactics, going back right-handed on better ground. He might not get it all his own way, mainly with Saint Sam in here, who is just basically uncontrollable at times. But I think that might actually just help him slightly. If Saint Sam can really go off in front, Gentleman de May maybe leads the others. Obviously, that style will definitely help him. He just has a propensity to pop up in these types of races at a decent enough price. And I think this is probably going to be one of his better chances. So I think at the prices currently, I think he'll probably improve more than, like to say, Captain Guinness will for previous exploits. And this could be another good chance for him to get another grade 1, despite his very much inconsistent profile.
Alrighty, that is a penultimate grade 1 done, because we've still got the 6 o'clock, which is the Dooley Insurance Champion Novices Chase with Monty Star at 3.25, 4.5 for Spillane's Tower, Embassy Gardens, Matt Toombs' favourite horse, or most reliable horse, is 6.0, American Mike 10.0, bigger prices thereafter. We've gone for a bigger price here. Yeah, Matt, over to you.
Yeah, it's Trappier. The lads are going with Monty Star, and I'm a big fan of him too. Just that favourites have a poor record in this. Only 3 of the 16 have gone in so far. 3 Mile Chase is hard work. It's hard to know which horses are going to train on to this stage of the season. So I just wanted to play at a bigger price, even though I like Monty Star. And it's with Sandhook again, who was 6 1/4 lengths behind him at Cheltenham in the Broadway. But they jumped the last together, seemingly going similarly well. Sandal Clegane made a mess of it and lost momentum, was allowed to coast home. They went pretty steadily in the Broadway, turned into a relative sprint, 110% finishing speed. I think this ought to be true a run on a sharp track, which I think will suit him. He ran really well last year in the Albert Bartlett, beating 1.25 lengths. He then came here and won the final of the Red Mills Auction Series. So he's shown his ability to hold his form to the end of the season, which is important at this meeting. The obvious concern about him is he's been inclined to back off his fences. And these will be stiffer than the ones he faced at Cheltenham. And earlier in the season, I thought he just wasn't taken to chase. He might go back over hurdles. But I was rewatching his races, and his fencing does look to be getting better. He did warm up as the race went on in the Broadway. So perhaps he's learning. It might be that he'll find it easier to jump out of this better ground. Paul Nolan's Yard's been going well in recent weeks. It feels like a race to be backing one at a price for all I like Monty Star. So if all 8 winners stand their ground, I'll be playing him in the win and the place market.
All righty. And I don't know who's stronger about Monty Star. Whoever feels very strongly, speak now.
I'd say Don's probably going to be stronger than I am. I think he's had a longer history with this horse than I do, for sure.
Yeah, I think he's probably priced up around about right, Tom. There's not much in him at around 3.0 or thereabouts. But look, I just think he's a horse for next season to look forward to a lot. He could take a really high rank among the top staying chasers. He's only had 3 runs over fences. He was a high-class hurdler last season, as we know. His run at Punchestown when he beat 3 Card Bragg, he was very good that day. His jumping was super, and he just flowed over his fences. I thought his run in the Brown Advisory Chase was a good run as well. Okay, he finished second behind Fact to File, but I thought he ran well for a long way, jumped well. He did a lot right. That was only his 3rd ever run. He's only 7. Sorry, his 3rd run over fences. I think he's only had 3 runs over hurdles as well. So he's a really likely raced horse. We know that he goes well at the track. I take Matt's point on Sandor Clegane. I think he's a player as well in the race, but I think Monty Star is the most likely winner by a fair way. I think it's correct that he's a clear favourite.
Dan?
Yeah, I think he should be a bit clearer at the head of the market, to be honest. Although Spillane's Tower obviously has stamina to prove, after a long campaign. I was quite dismissive of Monty Star going to the Brown Advisory. I thought lack of experience would tell, but he ran an absolute blinder on his first start of the year. And that's just kind of typical Henry the Bromhead. He just gets improvement out of these chasers so well. I think there's still an awful lot more to come from him. Obviously, I like the way he also pulled a bit clear of the 3rd and 4th. Obviously, as Matt said, it was a slowly run race. To put distance in between the rest, I thought was quite impressive. Yeah, I think there's an awful lot more to come from Monty Star, and I think he probably should arguably close to about 2.5 than 3.0. So I think they could actually shorten a bit.
Alrighty, that's us done as far as the individual race previews go. We come to Matchbook Zero Long Shot. Reminder that market goes live at 10 a.m. each day. You're most likely to get best odds with an exchange and with no margin built in. and 0 commission, you are almost certainly to be getting that. That's further enhanced given it's Matchbook 0. Check that out from 10 a.m. each day. Don?
Yeah, I'm going to stick with Maricone in the full circle series final. I don't know what price it's going to be, but I hope it's going to be a long shot or longish shot.
305 at Punchestown. Matt?
Asian Master in the 2 mile novice hurdle.
And Dan?
Yeah, same race as Don, World of Dreams, and we'll just pray it's at a good price.
Best lays. I want to lay Slade Steel in the Champion Novice at about 2.25. I guess Matt made a pretty consistent case for that, but I just can't believe round here that this is the distance he wants. I think he was helped by a strong pace and very testing ground at Cheltenham. I think he might get found out at Punchestown for all he's clearly a very good horse. Matt?
So the aforementioned Embassy Gardens. Now, this is an in-running play in the 3 mile novice chase. He had a heart issue in the not quite 4 miles, so you can put a line through that. Prior to that, he won his 2 chases in good style, jumped and travelled really well, and won without being asked for an effort, which was just as well. Because when he is asked for an effort, he looks to throw the towel in. On his hurdling debut at Cork last season, Sean O'Keefe gave him 1 crack approaching the last, flashed his tail and stopped. And Paul Townend's been careful not to use the whip this season, but even at Naas, when he was just pushing him out, there was a hint of a tail flash. So the way I play it is before the race, put in some lays near the floor price on the Matchbook Exchange, leave them active in running. There's every chance he'll travel like a winner, trade very short, and then duck the issue at the business end.
Those are our best lays. And when we come to best bets, I've followed you in, Matt, but I think Dino Blue at 3.0. Happy days. Don?
Yeah, Banbridge against Dino Blue.
Matt?
I'm with you on Dino Blue, Tom.
And Dan?
Toto 2, 11.0 currently, the 4.15, the 2 mile handicap.
Wednesday, the 340 is the Louis Fitzgerald Novices Hurdle. I have not got prices up in front of me yet, but 2 people want to back no flies on him. Don, why?
I think there's a lot more to come from this horse, Tom. He's only had 3 runs over hurdles. He's a point-to-point winner. He was impressive when winning his maiden hurdle at Leopardstown over Christmas, and then he finished second behind Tully Hill. I know Tully Hill beat him well, but it was a good run in that listed race at Punchestown. Last time in the Grade 2 Novices Hurdle at Fairyhouse, he was well beaten in the end, but he travelled really well. Like over the third last around the home turn, he looked like he was going to play a part in the finish, and then he just kind of faded. And maybe it was the ground, a 2.5 mile trip combined with the heavy ground, just kind of found him out in the end. But I just think on better ground, there's more to come from him. When he won his maiden hurdle, it was yielding ground that day, and that was probably up there with his best performances. So look, I think he's only 5. I think he's a horse from whom there could be a fair bit more to come. The Edward O'Grady horses, they're in good form as well on the flat, actually. He had Rumi won at Gorham Park there last week. And he's a horse who I have earmarked as a horse from whom there's more to come. And this could be a good opportunity for him to step forward again on better ground. And
Dan, what would you like to add to that?
Yeah, he's a horse I was really excited about after he won his main hurdle over Christmas. I thought he just was such a fluent hurdler. He looked like he could take really high rank in the novice hurdle division. Thereafter, I think there have been excuses. I mean, he was so weak in the betting behind Tully Hill on that occasion. I think therefore turned out afterwards he missed a piece of work, which is kind of the reason he kind of ran like a horse who lacked a piece of work. And then last time out, I just think heavy ground is not what he wants. He's proven really effective on a quick surface, seems to glide off that. You go back to that point-to-point win when he beat Django Bai, who's now rated 146. I'd be amazed if we've seen the best of him already. I think there's more to come. And I think I've just had a look. I think the opening prices have just come out in a couple of places, and he's 7.0, which I think is fair enough. Obviously, Mr. Giff, he's taking up a lot of the market, but at 7.0 in opposition, yeah, I still retain a lot of faith in no flies on him. I think he could still be quite good.
And Matt, who do you like?
Yeah, if I'd seen, I didn't think he'd be as big as 7.0, I have to say. I thought he would be a bit short on that. So let's see why the boys like him. I like a real long shot who's about 34.0. 10 years since anyone other than Willie Mullins or Jessica Harrington won this. They won 4 each of the last 8 renewals. Jessica's flat orientated these days, but she used to really target this meeting. And her 4 winners of this all improved hugely in this race. 51.0 shot booked Freedom, recording RPR £20 higher than any of his previous 10 starts. Woodland Opera around to £11 higher. Lifetime Ambition £16, Cross Hill £14 higher than he had that season. Now, you'd expect winners of a race like this to show improved form, but to put it in context, Willie's 4 recent winners improved by £9, £5, £0 and £11. And she's got a horse called Bow Walking here, who's been running in hot maiden hurdles this season, finishing 3rd on all 5 occasions, including To Tell a Story and Waterford Whispers. All 5 runs have been on soft or heavy. He's half-brother to Sizing Mauritius, whose Solwyn came on good to yielding. So the rain coming is probably going to be about yielding ground. I think that'll suit him nicely. He avoids the £6 penalty that most of his opponents have. So I'm putting him up on the basis that 34.0, take a bit of a flyer and on Jessica's ability to target this meeting and this race in particular.
Couple of shouts for no flies on him, and Matt agrees he should be shorter, but it's going with Bow Walking at 34.0. The 4:15 is the Channel Group Novices Hurdle. And again, we've got a bit of a team steam emerging here. So Dancing City is 3.5. Stellar Story, having won at 34.0 at the festival, is 4.0. Better Days Ahead is 7.0. And he is the one that 3 of us, because I'm joining in here, want to back. I'll let Dan kick things off.
Yeah, obviously the Martin Pipe winner, and I just think that Martin Pipe form is going to work out really well in the short and long term. We've already seen Cader Bourbon come out and bolt up at Perth the other day, looking at the class above. Obviously, all Irish trained novice hurdlers. They're all the kind of horses you want to see in that race. And arguably, he travelled probably the worst of those 4. He was pushed along probably at the earliest, but his excess stamina really showed, and he clearly will relish the step up to 3 miles. Obviously, the Martin Pipe in general has been a good source of Grade 1 winners moving forward, and going into this race in particular, I think 3 of the last 7 or 8 we've seen have come from the Martin Pipe and Kilatavik, Champagne Classic, and Gallopin de Champ. They all followed up here. I'm still slightly unsure about that Albert Bartlett. I know Dancing City and the Jukebox Man did kind of frank it at Aintree, but I think both were quite strangely run races. I'm still unconvinced about the long-term depth of those 2 pieces of form. I actually prefer the Martin Pipe moving forward. So I think currently, he's 7.0. And part of that is going to be priced on Danny Gilligan riding and not Jack Kennedy. But obviously, having rode him in the Martin Pipe, I think it makes sense for Danny to retain the ride. Still has a lot of upside, I think, as a 3-mile hurdler. Will improve for the step up in trip. Yeah, and I'm just keen to follow that Martin Pipe form for the foreseeable future.
I mean, completely. I think not for the first time, the winner of the Martin Pipe, of the 3 mile at Cheltenham, the Albert Bartlett won't turn out to be the best of them. And I don't love all of that 3 mile form between Britain and Ireland. Better Days Ahead stepping back up in trip, a distance which he's won over. I think that's probably the better piece of form for all it was a handicap. A 7.0 Don, I thought, was a very attractive price. Yeah,
I found this race tricky. Confounded by the fact that Jack Kennedy's riding Stellar Story and Danny Gilligan's on Better Days Ahead. Look, Danny Gilligan, he can't claim his £5 here, but he does. He's stealing £5 whenever he can claim it. He's such a good rider. He's such good value for that. So I'm not too worried about that. More the kind of pecking order of the yard, and Jack is obviously all out to win the championship. So but for me, that's factored into his odds. It may have been a very close call for Jack Kennedy which one he was going to ride, and all of what Dan said, I agree with that. Like the Martin Pipe Hurdle, it's often a strong race. This year's renewal looks like it's particularly strong. And Better Days Ahead, like he won it through stamina. And the Martin Pipe race, it is a race that, for me anyway, it's won through stamina. It's won by a horse over 2.5 miles who will improve for stepping out and trip generally going forward and normally over fences. And Better Days Ahead will be an exciting chaser if he goes that way next season. But in the meantime, stepping out to 3 miles over hurdles now, I think that's going to be a positive for him. And he's just improving. Like he was well fancied for Cheltenham. He handled the ground well, but he handles better ground as well. He's got form over the trip as well. And I just of the top 4 in the market, there's not a huge amount between them in my book, but he's the biggest price of the 4, and that makes him the value of the race for me.
You're looking much bigger, Matt.
Yeah, I reluctantly have abandoned Better Days Ahead after he did me a favour at Cheltenham. As I've said, it's just that jockey booking makes me a little bit nervous. So I've taken a bit of a flyer on Untubber. He also a horse stepping up in trip. And since this became a Grade 1, runners that hadn't run beyond 2 mile 5 over hurdles, 5 from 24, 28% profit. And the vibes in the autumn was that he was ahead of Slade Steele in Henry's pecking order. Now, it may just be he isn't as good as they thought, but he went off favourite for the Royal Bond. And to my eye, he's shaped like a real galloper there. Now, sometimes trainers have a novice hurdler. They know who's a good horse in the autumn, but they don't know what the trip is. Both Penhill and Very Wood went off near the front of the market for the Royal Bond, ended up winning that season's Albert Bartlett. So it wouldn't be a surprise to see it and Tubber a totally different proposition here. He's worth a swing at a huge price.
2 going up in the Racing State Punchestown Champion Bumper. Both shouts from Don and Matt are for Romeo Coolio. Again, strong opinion first. Just feel free to take it away, whoever.
Go for it, Don.
I find bumpers hard, so it's not a hugely strong opinion. But I just like the horse, and I liked when he won at Fairyhouse back in January. He beat Sporting Glory. He didn't have a good prep for that race, and I thought he kept on well to beat Pat Fag's horse, who came out and won next time. And then at Cheltenham again, like he did really well. He hit the front just outside the furlong marker. He was run down by Jasmine DeVoe in the end, but again, he's a horse who's just seems to be improving all the time. I think there's plenty more to come from him next season. And look, he has to reverse places with Jasmine DeVoe. He's got a length and a half or a length and 3/4 to find with him. And William Money comes into it as well. He's been impressive. He was really impressive at Naas last time, and Barry Connell thinks an awful lot of him. So I'm looking forward to seeing him taking on the Cheltenham horses. But I think there's a good chance that Romeo Coolio can improve by enough to reverse placements with Jasmine DeVoe. And yeah, I think he's a decent price as well.
Matt, the last 2 Champion Bumper winners have come here and won. Why isn't this one going to?
Well, there's been a bit of a mixed record. 4 times they've turned the form round with the Cheltenham winner, Kilcruck with Sir Gerhard, Tornado Fly, Relegate, Chantel Silver, Concord, and Refinement missed that. None of the Grade 1s has that happened more often than in this race. And 8 winners have come who were beaten at Cheltenham. So for a longer term point of view, I wouldn't be too worried about that. Don made the crucial point about the prep for Romeo Coolio. He was 9.0 a few days before the bumper, went off 19.0. So I think he's the one with a bit more improvement in him. And I think they should be a bit closer to each other in the market.
Okay, so that is the case for Romeo Coolio. The 525 is the Punchestown Gold Cup. Forget who it was in the comments who said, Tom Leach, remember Galopin Des Champs got beat last year, lay him. Matt, you're not officially with, but you have put no bet, but selected him. Don, I'll come to you first because I know you were keen on Fast or Slow at Cheltenham.
Yeah, I'm keen on it again, Tom. Like as Tom Leach said there, he beat him in the race last year, and that was when Galopin Des Champs, he'd won the Gold Cup. He came on here, and maybe he and Brave Man's Game got racing early enough in the Punchestown Gold Cup last year, and Fast or Slow was able to stay on to get the better of them. But there was an awful lot to like about what Fast or Slow did that day, and then he went and confirmed all of that in the John Durkin chase. For all, Galopin Des Champs probably wasn't at his best that day. Look, Galopin Des Champs, he's a superstar. He's a dual Gold Cup, Cheltenham Gold Cup winner. And what I think he's great for racing as well. But he's odds on here, and Fast or Slow, it's a shame that we didn't get to see how the race would have panned out at Cheltenham, because he was traveling really well, jumping really well. But the positive about that in the context of this race, obviously, is that he didn't have a hard race for all that he ran on loose and was up there jumping the last. But I think back at Punchestown, he does go well at Cheltenham. He's got good Cheltenham Festival form, but he does jump a little bit to his right, and we know that he goes well at Punchestown. So I think he's possibly a wee bit better suited by Punchestown than he is by Cheltenham. Galopin Des Champs had to have had a hard race at Cheltenham. If he can come on here and win a Punchestown Gold Cup, having done that, he'd be an iron horse, and he may well be. But I just think Fast or Slow has a real chance of reversing placements with him. And again, like at Cheltenham, I think he should be closer to him in the betting than he is.
Dan.
Yeah, it comes down to, I mean, I love Galopin Des Champs, and what he's done has been miraculous. And obviously, I know the DRF race didn't exactly turn out to be a massive test because it was quickly run, obviously small fields. That probably helped him going into the Gold Cup. But if he's to come here and win this, it would be a miraculous campaign. Obviously, the test that he's been set, if he was to do it, it would be one of the best campaigns from any horse in recent memory that I can remember. It's going to catch up sooner rather than later, surely. Obviously, he would have had a hard race in the Gold Cup. There was no getting away from that. Obviously, it was 3 mile 2 in deep ground. Obviously, I know Jerry Colon came out and won at Aintree, but I mean, he had avoided the DRF with purposely going to the Gold Cup fresh. We had less miles on the clock in that regard. it must have taken some of the sting out of him. And that does make him vulnerable to a horse like Fast or Slow, as we've seen previously. Obviously, we don't know how it would have transpired, as Don said. Like, he was going pretty well at the time. It was a pretty soft on seat in the end. But I think there's chances to take on Galopin Des Champs. But I wasn't willing to do it at Cheltenham because I thought the DRF was a pretty modest enough race in terms of how it panned out. But the Gold Cup was a difficult race. And to come back from that and win here again would solidify him as an all-time horse in my regard. So with that in mind and what I think it would take to do that, I think now's probably the time to take a stab against him with Fast or Slow at 4.33.
Matt, do you have anything sort of under bet stats-wise here or not?
No, not really. I think the 5 Gold Cup winners who've come on here, 3 have won, Sizing John, War of Attrition, Kicking King, Album Photo and Galopin Des Champs were both second. So the gap between Cheltenham and Punchestown has made it easier to do it than it was at Aintree. I think he's about the right price at 1.73. So my heart hopes he wins, but I won't be having a bet.
Okay, that's the Gold Cup done. We finish up as far as official race previews with HSSR Handicap Chase, and I'll come straight to you, Dan.
Yeah, I think he's going to be quite a big price at New Park here because he's £3 out of the handicap. But you look at the previous winners of this race, I think 4 of the last 8 all carried 10 stone 1 or less. I think maybe that's indicative of Willie Mullins running a couple of classy ones in here and keeping a few out of the handicap, which again is the case. But he doesn't have the class that some of these possess, but he's been quite an improved performer in the last 18 months or so. Having been quite a tricky type earlier in his campaigning. It seems to be really improving and remains unexposed at these kind of intermediate trips. Has done a lot of his winning and running recently at 2 miles. But last time we saw him at this kind of trip was after a short break, which he again is coming off of, and he bolted up by 7 lengths in a quite an emphatic display. Obviously, Philip Rothwell's having a great season. It's been quite well advertised. So he's getting in off a very light weight. Would prefer the ground to stay as good as possible. I know I've seen a few of the comments mentioning that there is rain. It's still raining, and there's rain due tomorrow as well. Forecasts kind of vary. I don't think it's going to get overly testing. Obviously, it doesn't seem to be likely. I don't think they'll need to water anyway, at least in the earlier parts of the week. But I think he's got a lot going for him. I say he does have trends on his side in regards to being quite low down the weights, and I think he'll be quite a big price and underestimated, maybe because obviously he hasn't got the same high profile as some of his rivals have.
17.0.
That'll do.
That'll do, will it?
That'll do. I think it might get bigger as well. I expect that to probably drift a bit.
Okay. Don, I'm interested here. I was very strong on James de Burley in the Topham, and his finishing effort, perhaps not for the first time, was disappointing. Why do you like?
I was with you in the Topham, Tom. Yeah, that's him, isn't it? He travels, and I thought at Aintree with the flat finish that would help him. I think Punchestown with the flat / downhill finish will help him as well. I didn't realize he'd be as short as he is now. When we were putting it up, there were no prices in. He's pretty short now, but he just keeps on traveling really well in these races, in the Paddy Parrott Chase and the Leopardstown Chase. He doesn't fully stay at 3 miles. Like you, I thought the Topham would have been his race. His jumping was really good over the spruce fences, and he went to the front looking. And in fairness, Paul Townend delayed it as long as he could, and just got run down. I can see him traveling again into the race, and I think the Punchestown finish might just help him get home. He's a 4.0 or 4.5 shot. To me, that's short enough, but I think he's the right favourite for the race.
And finally, Matt.
Yeah, we've got a few prices through. We've been quoting. It's 141% overround because it's only one bookmaker. So I think we will get bigger prices. And 8 of the last 10 winners went off double figure prices. Been plenty of value at juicy prices in this. Last 4 winners have run in a handicap on their previous start. 3 were beaten 50 lengths, 34 lengths, 19 lengths. The others pulled up. So it has been a race where you need to look beyond recent form. And what's been a surprisingly good guide to this is the Topham that we're mentioning for James de Burley, which at first sight seems a bit odd because it's a real specialist race. But it is a race for which horses are primed all season. They can get there well handicapped. If things don't go to plan, then this is an obvious plan B. And since it got grade A status in 2010, runners from the Topham 4th and 30, 77% profit, including 3 of the last 4 winners. And I'm interested in one of the others from the Topham, Bill Baxter, who won the Topham last season as a novice of 133. Warren Great Tricks was talking grand plans from this season. They didn't work out. He was dropped £9 from 143 to 134 in Britain. I wondered if Great Tricks had actually been deflecting from the fact that a repeat of the Topham win had been the plan all along. But he unseated at the chair there. He gets in off 132 here, so cheek piece is retained. I'm taking a chance on him bouncing back to form. He's 9.0 in the early markets with a one firm, but I imagine it'll be a double figure price once everyone's priced it up.
James de Burley, Bill Baxter, Union Park, the three going up in that handicap chase. Any other Wednesday bet? Straight back at you, Matt Toombs.
No prices yet. I should actually just check that while we're doing that. But Fleur ou Fuzel was a horse that caught the eye. Yeah, about 4.5 looking at this. She was well backed into 11.0 for the champion bumper, much too keen, beaten 12 lengths in 7th. Drop back into Mare's company. If she settles, she ought to take plenty of beating here. The fact that Patrick's choosing Aurora Vega, who Fleur ou Fuzel beat easily at DRF, albeit on £3 better terms, ought to make her a price. So I wouldn't be surprised if she gets a little bit bigger than 4.5. The money might come for Patrick's mare. If she settles here, she could be an in-running player in the Matchbook Exchange. If that's the way you like to do it, I think she could be a really top-class mare next season.
That's Fleur Fuzel at 4.5. And Dan in the 230 and 305. Apologies.
Yeah, got a couple. So the opening handicap, Walkaway Harry just has the potential to be a real handicap blot. Obviously won at the 2x2 bumper at the festival last season. The form of that hasn't worked out excessively well. I mean, the second and third are quite tricky types, Irish Panther and Dr. Eggman. Lecky Watson was 5th to give it a bit of substance, but he's been very much a work in progress, it seems, over hurdles. But you go back to his 4th behind Reading Tommy Wrong, Lisnagar Fortune in Staffordshire Not. That reads extremely well. He was a real eye catcher when we last saw him. And that run, indeed, when he was 4th to those 3 aforementioned, that was on the best ground he's encountered all season. Handicap debut off a mark 113. From what he showed in bumpers, and indeed that 4th to those 3 smart types, he could just be extremely well handicapped off that. And unsurprisingly, given connections, I think the market will probably tell you all you need to know about his chances going in. So hopefully it's all positive. And then the 305, the auction final. We've mentioned the Martin Pipe quite a lot. An answer to Caith represents that form line here. Just a really consistent, admirable type. Been running really well all season. Obviously, 4th in the Martin Pipe. Keita Bourbon's already proven that to be decent form. And hopefully that will keep getting franked through the week. I'm just happy to keep that form on side for a while. And even former Hendon, the likes of Captain Cody, who won that Grade 2 at Fairyhouse recently, that's been boosted as well. So while he has the maximum penalties to carry, the John Shinnick's £7 claim does help alleviate some of those. And I suspect that he probably might just be a step above some of these. And he definitely sets the form standard.
A reminder that you can check out all the guys' selections at insights.matchbook.com. We come to Matchbook Zero long shots on the Wednesday. Matchbook Zero goes live at 10 a.m. each day. And if you're looking for a win bet, you may as well head there because you are most likely to get best odds because it's the exchange price with zero margin and zero commission built in. Don, your long shot is?
It's not that long a shot, actually, as it turns out, Tom. No flies on him in the Louis Fitzgerald hurdle. I just think the better ground will ring about improvement. I think there's more to come from him.
Matt?
Untubber in the 4:15, the 3 mile novice hurdle.
And Dan?
I'll go Union Park in the 6 o'clock, the 2.5 mile handicap.
Best lays, just you, I think, Matt, please.
Yeah, in the bumper, the Grade 1 bumper, William Money, who's looked impressive visually, but the form hasn't worked out. And he's pretty short based on the trainer hyping him up. So it would be more a lay in the place market on the fact he might bomb out entirely against a couple of really good horses at the front here.
All right, best bets on Wednesday. And we do have another section after this, so don't go anywhere. Mine is Better Days Ahead at 7.0 in the 4:15 at Punchestown. 3 of us liked him. Don?
Fast or slow at the price to beat Gallop in the champ, the Punchestown Gold Cup.
4.33. Matt?
Romeo Coolio in the bumper.
And Dan?
Answer to Caith in the auction final, the 305.
And across the week, we've got one more each. Well, I don't, but the other 3 do. So couple on Thursday, first of all, in the 6 o'clock. Don?
Yeah, I think Buddy 1 is interesting here in the Stairs Hurdle, Tom, the Champion Stairs Hurdle. I think that Lugtirpu is the one to beat. He was very good at Cheltenham, and he comes here a fresh horse, having only run that the Cheltenham run was his first run since that Grace Hurdle back in early December. But I think Buddy 1, he's a coming horse. He was a good handicapper last season. He's proven this season that he deserves a place in Grade 1 company. He was 4th in the Stairs Hurdle at Cheltenham. And I thought he ran an even better race in the Liverpool Hurdle when he finished second behind Strong Leader. He was in front from a fairway out that day. And Strong Leader loves Aintree and was trained for the race by Ollie Murphy. So I thought Buddy One did well. And yeah, like he's about 11.0 or thereabouts in the Stairs Hurdle. I think that's too big. And Paul Gilligan, he's a good trainer. And I think maybe he's underrated because he comes from a fairly small yard.
Couple of listed handicap hurdle shouts next. First of all, there's the subsequent race to that Grade 1 staying hurdle. Matt?
Yeah, I've got a long and painful history of backing horses at Cheltenham. They're disappointing, and then them winning at Punchestown, sometimes at fancy prices, after I've abandoned them. Mighty Potter was a case in point on the show a couple of years ago, winning the 2-mile novice hurdle at 21.0 after put him up for the Supreme. So I'm trying to be more forgiving. And my biggest handicap bet at Cheltenham, Gabby's Cross, finished last of 18 finishers in the Potemps final off 133. Clearly too bad to be true. He's in the 3-mile handicap hurdle here off 127. He was an eye-catching second off 123 in the Potemps qualifier here in November. Last 3 out, didn't get a clear run, not fluent at the last, looked to finish with plenty of running left. He's 13 pounds lower over hurdles, despite being a poor jumper of fences, and looking as if hurdles suit him much better. So I'm going to give him a chance to make amends for his Cheltenham flop.
And on Saturday, a couple of hours after we know the first classic winner of the season, Dan can give us another one at Punchestown.
And then we'll have seen a horse who's probably going to win graded races over fences next season. And please God, let this Martin Pike work out, or I'm in trouble. So Waterford Whispers, who finished second, probably goes in that 2-mile free handicap on the Saturday. He absolutely tanked through that race. Like I've never seen. He travelled so well, too well. And as the guys have said, unfortunately, that race is generally won through stamina. He just did far too much too soon. Hit the front miles too early and just still gave a really good effort to finish quite a close second. He ran off there off 133, got a real big whack from the British handicapper. He's only off 135 now. I think there's loads more to come from him. I think he'll win this, and I think he'll go on to be a graded novice chaser next season.
That is us done. Thank you very much, the three of you and everyone at home for tuning in. Thursday, I believe we're back, and that is going to be for a look ahead to the Guineas and to tidy up Punchestown as well. So it's a big weekend coming up. Keep an eye out for us towards the end of the week. But have a great first couple of days at Punchestown. Bye-bye.